We're at this conference that seems to be very focused on tokenization and blockchain technology specifically. It's not in the name of the conference, but that's clearly the running theme here. So what exactly is tokenization?
Yeah, tokenization is just a way to use kind of blockchains as a record-keeping device, effectively record-keeping system to kind of improve both the back-end processes and then hopefully the front-end user experience of kind of day-to-day financial services for people.
The concept of tokenization precedes blockchain technology though, so how has this become such a hot topic today? How did we get here, and how is this iteration of tokenization different, obviously, other than the fact that we're using blockchain?
Yeah, I think, so there's this conference or similar ones have been going on for some time. There's probably been a couple different waves in sort of this tokenization cycle, and it feels like it's something that's much more of like a topic today than it's been at least the past couple years, although it's been talked about for some time. So again, tokens are just records, and we use tokens to refer to records on blockchains. So I think what's been changed is that a lot of people have seen what's gone on in like DeFi and kind of other parts of the crypto ecosystem and said like, wow, that's actually like a very powerful way to do financial services. Like even like a Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan's commented that, DeFi is real even if he's a huge Bitcoin skeptic, right? So there's something about the automated code-based process of kind of delivering finance that's been very interesting about DeFi that I think a lot of firms like ourselves at WisdomTree are trying to figure out and build products around going forward.
Okay, so what are kind of bullet point some of the benefits of tokenization for me, both for the firm, a lot of financial institutions at this event, and also how is the end user, the client, going to feel that on the other side? Yeah, so
maybe a little bit of a backstory. So WisdomTree is kind of a well-known ETF shop. And we've been very adamant, and for the past 10 years, have been proponents in terms of ETFs as being a better technology than mutual funds. And we're starting to see some of the same benefits of that here today for tokenization. I like to focus on liquidity, transparency, and standardization. Tokens demonstrate the potential for 24/7 peer-to-peer atomic settlement, which is a very interesting way and quite different than how traditional financial markets work. Transparency for kind of different people involved in the ecosystem, right? That's a huge part of public blockchains is that they're fully transparent. And standardization, it's a very powerful idea with ETFs. You can hold pretty much any asset inside your brokerage account. With tokenization, you're seeing the potential to hold any asset as a token kind of held in a wallet on your smartphone. There's a lot to go to get there, but that kind of concept, I think, has a lot of potential and power going forward.
Go a little bit further on WisdomTree. What is your involvement in crypto to date?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
So WisdomTree is a $90 billion asset manager and ETF sponsor. About 4 years ago, we kind of asked ourselves this question of what could do to ETFs, what ETFs did to mutual funds, what could be this next technology and wrapper. We didn't know quite how yet, but we kind of thought that there was something to blockchain and tokenization. So me and other colleagues have been working on this for the past 3 to 4 years in terms of building out our offering here. And for us, we see it as a way to improve the user experience around kind of people engagement with the assets that we put out there. So we're launching a mobile application, WisdomTree Prime, that'll be a new, kind of our first direct-to-consumer offering, providing access for people to actually access like real-world assets tokenized.
What kind of real-world assets? Give me an example.
It could be anything. It could be something as simple as gold, right? Physical gold, kind of held in like a title instrument that can be tokenized, and essentially creating like a truly version of like a digital gold. That's one example. We also have a suite of what we call digital funds, which are effectively 40 Act registered mutual funds, the same as any mutual fund. A share record, though, of which can be tokenized as a secondary record, which we think is a great first step in terms of kind of showing the potential and benefits of tokenization and blockchain-enabled finance for people.
So I was saying to you earlier, I'm feeling a little bit of deja vu at this conference. I've been covering crypto for many years, but this seems like, around 2015, 2016, you did see a bunch of banks and financial institutions kind of get into crypto, distributed ledger technology, and it felt a little bit like innovation theater. Like a lot of companies were trying to show that they were keeping up and they were doing the research, but we really weren't sure that we were going to see anything actually come out product-wise. How is now different, and why is it different? Because there has been so much advancement in crypto, on the regulatory side, culturally, just general mainstream acceptance. So how is now different, and why?
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the past have been focused on tokenizing like a building and saying, wow, this magically creates liquidity, which no, it doesn't. Anyone who's been in kind of the ETF space or has traded ETFs kind of understands that the liquidity is actually the underlying asset. So just because you tokenize it, make the technology better, does not necessarily mean you make it more liquid. So where I think people have been seeing, and especially with, frankly, the growth of stablecoins over the past 2 to 3 years, where 3 years ago there was only a couple hundred million in these instruments. Today there's billions and billions of dollars. Is that there's actually real demand for kind of real world assets like US dollars, or this US dollar kind of liability that these stablecoin issuers have, kind of being able to held on chain, the type of programmability of money, potential for better settlement that I've spoken about. So I think a lot of people have seen that, and like what we said is, well, why can't you just apply the same thing to other assets like, US Treasuries through a fund structure, for example. So that's kind of how WisdomTree kind of bought into this, and I think you're seeing a lot more higher quality firms trying to come into this and doing more than just POCs, but actually doing real live product, which is what we're working on at WisdomTree. We've got these 9 funds live, gold token, like I said, all available through an app we have called WisdomTree Prime.
Yeah, blockchain, not Bitcoin was sort of the refrain at the time. You guys aren't Bitcoin skeptics, though.
No, I think blockchain, not Bitcoin, is kind of a false choice. I think Bitcoin was the first demonstration of like the Bitcoin network of kind of blockchain, like peer-to-peer settlement and kind of all the ways. So there's a lot of potential power there. I think you should really be thinking about them differently. I think of Bitcoin or Ether as kind of asset classes that are obviously key components of these networks. But those in and of themselves can have value, right? Like I think there's lots of reasons that if you believe gold can have value, you should definitely look at Bitcoin and see it's got lots of these great qualities that are different than gold, some better, some worse. Why can't it be another gold-like kind of store of value asset? So no, we're definitely not skeptics on crypto as a whole. I think there's certainly some projects and assets and tokens like Dogecoin or whatever that are not really investable assets, but certainly Bitcoin and Ether seem to me to kind of fit a lot of the qualities that can fit in a long-term investor's portfolio.
What do you make of the markets right now coming off of a tough 2022 for everybody ending in FTX, but really this clear upward trend for Bitcoin? Just what do you make of the banking crisis and the central bank policy that everyone seems to be monitoring, and how is that affecting crypto right now and your business in crypto?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, it's actually been one of the first times where Bitcoin and Ether, despite what we may say, have typically been risk-on assets, and they're starting to move a little bit more divergently from kind of stocks, which has been interesting to see. I think certainly it was interesting with the banking crisis that the price rose up there, and I think it was just a recognition that a lot of people had of like, hey, this is how the system actually works today, and this is why Bitcoin or gold actually work differently as kind of these, bearer instruments, potential stores of value. So it's been, good to see kind of a price performing, kind of moving with some of these fundamental characteristics of the assets. But who knows? These are so volatile; they can move so quickly in a different direction. But I've certainly been encouraged by the performance of them over the course of this year.
I think with the banking crisis, something that's been interesting to watch is people who all throughout 2022 really saw Bitcoin as a speculative risk asset, and despite however many times they've heard that it can be an alternative gold, an alternative financial system, an alternative this or that, people are actually opening their eyes to those possibilities with the banking crisis. So I guess my question at this conference is, when we say tokenization is an extra step towards broader adoption of digital assets, what do we mean? Do we necessarily mean cryptocurrencies and crypto assets like Bitcoin and Ether, or are we talking like stable coins and CBDC?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, one thing that I think is undeniable is the way people have been able to access crypto in the US makes it feel like it's not connected to the rest of your portfolio, which I think a huge problem, right? Where you say, oh, I only want to have 3% of my allocation to Bitcoin, but you can't manage it in one app. It doesn't kind of fit naturally in there. So one of the ways we've thought about tokenization is just a way to kind of put that all into one of the same infrastructure and user experience, where you could say, hey, I'm holding my, my US large cap fund just right alongside Bitcoin. I'm able to maybe balance or rebalance between them in kind of a more native way. I think that has a lot of potential and should lead to better customer experience, where people aren't putting way more of their money in a very volatile asset than they necessarily know what they're doing. So I think over time, you're seeing that with other firms like a Fidelity in terms of bringing crypto kind of allow it to be like at the next to somebody's core portfolio. I think just has better benefits overall.
I want to come back to WisdomTree Prime before I say goodbye to you. So you said your first D2C product.
Yep.
Why are you going the D2C direction? And to the extent, based on what you are able to share today, what should we expect to see and when? What's that rollout look like?
So WisdomTree's historically been kind of a B2B firm. You buy our ETFs through a brokerage account, for example. And as we got into the tokenization initiative, it was really clear that that existing model wasn't necessarily the best kind of user experience. And as we wanted to deliver the full potential of this technology, it made sense to deliver that through our own app, kind of own that own experience ourselves. So one of the key things I pointed out is like this connectivity between payments and savings and investing technology. And you can't really do that if it's kind of delivered through another app or mechanism. So one of the things that we're excited about, relating to this bank crisis is, US Treasuries, for example, are yielding 4 or 5% today. Incredibly safe asset, but for a lot of people, it just feels disconnected from the rest of their financial life. And one of what we're delivering with our app is the ability for that to be like your core savings-like experience, which I think is going to do a lot of good for people, give them more control over their money, and enable them to continue to earn interest as they want to spend on different things.